The stars looked peaceful from the observation deck of Earth's orbital station. Minho stood alone, watching the distant lights that had always seemed so quiet and harmless. He knew better now. The galaxy was not peaceful. It was full of predators, and the biggest predator had just arrived at humanity's doorstep. Captain Lee Minho had been in space for 15 years. He commanded the warship Indomitable, one of humanity's newest and most powerful vessels. His crew trusted him. Earth Command trusted him. But today trust might not be enough. The message had arrived 3 hours ago. A fleet of alien ships appeared at the edge of the solar system without warning. 47 massive warships, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. They belonged to the Velon Empire, a civilization that ruled over 300 star systems. The Velon had sent a simple message to Earth: surrender everything or die. Minho walked back to his ship. The Indomitable was docked at the station, taking on supplies. His crew was working hard, moving boxes and checking systems. They did not know yet. He had not told them about the ultimatum. He wanted them to have a few more hours of peace before everything changed. The ship's bridge was quiet when Minho entered. Commander Park Ji-won looked up from her console. She was his second in command, a woman who had served beside him for 8 years. She could read his face like a book. "What happened?" Ji-won asked. "You look like someone died." Minho activated the main screen. The recorded message from the Velon Empire began to play. A tall alien appeared, with 4 eyes arranged around its head and skin that looked like dark metal. It spoke in a cold mechanical voice that the computer translated into human language. "Humans of Earth, you are a young species. You have just learned to travel between stars. You are weak. You are alone. The Velon Empire has ruled this part of the galaxy for 2,000 years. We have conquered hundreds of species. All of them submitted peacefully. All of them serve us now. You will do the same." The alien's 4 eyes seemed to stare directly at Minho through the screen. "You have 12 hours to surrender. You will give us your weapons. You will give us your technology. You will accept Velon governors on your worlds. If you refuse, we will destroy your civilization. We will burn your planets. We will erase humanity from existence. You have 12 hours. Choose wisely." The message ended. The bridge was silent. Ji-won stared at the blank screen. "How many ships do they have?" 47 capital ships, Minho said. "Their smallest vessel is 3 times our size. Their flagship is 20 times larger than the Indomitable. Can we fight them?" Minho did not answer immediately. He pulled up data on his personal tablet, information his crew had been gathering for weeks. The Velon Empire had a long history. Every species they encountered either surrendered or was destroyed. Those who surrendered lost everything. Their cultures were erased. Their people became slaves. Their worlds became Velon colonies. Lieutenant Choi Hyun entered the bridge. He was young, barely 25, but he was the best communications officer in the fleet. His face was pale. "Captain, Earth Command just sent new orders," Hyun said. "All military vessels are ordered to stand down. The government is going to accept the Velon terms. They say we have no choice. Fighting would mean extinction." Ji-won slammed her fist on the console. "So we just give up? We become slaves without even trying?" "Earth Command thinks it gives us time," Hyun explained. "Time to learn more about the Velon. Time to find a weakness. Time to plan a rebellion later." Minho knew what Earth Command was thinking. It was logical. It was safe. It was probably what any reasonable person would do when facing impossible odds. But Minho had spent 15 years in space. He had seen what happened to species that gave up their freedom. He had visited dead worlds where civilizations once thrived before they surrendered to stronger powers. He made his decision. "Lieutenant Hyun, do not acknowledge those orders yet," Minho said. "Tell Earth Command we are experiencing communication problems. Tell them we will respond within the hour." Ji-won looked at him with wide eyes. "Minho, what are you planning?" "Get the senior officers to the briefing room," Minho ordered. "All of them. Right now." 10 minutes later, Minho stood before his senior staff. Commander Ji-won was there along with Lieutenant Hyun. Kim Dae-ho, the chief navigator, sat at the table with his arms crossed. Lieutenant Yoon Sara, the weapons officer, checked something on her tablet. Engineer Oh Taejin wiped grease from his hands. Dr. Han Suji, the chief scientist, looked worried. Pilot Kang Mirai bounced her leg nervously. Minho did not waste time. "Earth is going to surrender to the Velon Empire." "We are not," the room erupted. Everyone started talking at once. Mignot raised his hand for silence. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "I have spent weeks studying the Velon Empire. Every species they conquered believed they had no choice. Every species thought surrender would save lives. Every species was wrong. The Velon do not leave civilizations intact. They break them. They erase cultures. They turn people into tools. If we surrender today, humanity as we know it ends." "But Captain," Deho said, "we are one ship. They have 47. How can we possibly fight them?" Minho looked at Dr. Suji. "Tell them about the Horizon Drive." Suji stood up slowly. She was a brilliant scientist, the smartest person on the ship. She had been working on a secret project for the past year. "The Horizon Drive is an experimental engine," Suji explained. "It does not move the ship through normal space. It bends reality around us. It allows us to exist in multiple places at once, or to move through dimensions that other species cannot detect. In theory, a ship with a Horizon Drive cannot be tracked by conventional sensors. It can appear and disappear instantly. It can strike from angles that should be impossible." "In theory?" Sarah asked. "You mean it has never been tested?" "We have tested it at low power," Suji admitted. "It works, but we have never pushed it to full capacity. At maximum power, it might tear the ship apart, or it might do exactly what we need it to do." Tejan leaned forward. "You want us to attack the Velon fleet using an untested experimental drive? That is insane." "It is insane," Minho agreed. "But consider this. The Velon Empire has conquered hundreds of species. They have never lost a war. Why? Because everyone they fight uses the same basic technology. Ships that move through normal space, weapons that fire in straight lines, shields designed to stop conventional attacks. The Velon have never faced anything like the Horizon Drive. They will not know how to fight it." Jiwon stood up beside Minho. "The captain is right. If we surrender, humanity is finished. If we fight and lose, humanity is finished. But if we fight and win, even against impossible odds, we give Earth a chance. We show the galaxy that humans do not kneel." Miri spoke up from her seat. "If we are going to do this, we need to do it before the Velon fleet reaches the inner planets. Once they get close to Earth, any battle will put billions of lives at risk." "How long do we have?" Minho asked Deho. The navigator checked his calculations. 6 hours before the Velon fleet reaches Mars. 8 hours before they reach Earth." Minho looked around the table at his officers. These were good people. They had families on Earth. They had lives waiting for them. He was asking them to risk everything on a desperate plan that would probably get them all killed. "I will not order you to do this," Minho said quietly. "This is a decision each of you must make. If anyone wants to leave the ship, do it now. I will not think less of you. But if you stay knowing we might not survive the night." No one moved. No one spoke. Then Sarah stood up. "I am staying," she said. "My parents did not flee persecution on Earth just so I could surrender to aliens without a fight." Taijin stood next. "The Horizon Drive is my project too. If it is going to be tested in combat, I want to be here to see it." One by one, every officer stood. Daeho, Hyun, Mirai, Suji. Finally, Jiwon put her hand on Minho's shoulder. "We all stay," she said. "Now let us show the Velon Empire what happens when they threaten Earth." Minho felt pride swell in his chest. This was his crew. These were the people who would help him attempt the impossible. "All hands to battle stations," Minho ordered. "Detach from the station. Plot a course toward the Velon fleet. Let us go hunting." Admiral Kralthos sat in his command throne aboard the Velon flagship. He was old, over 300 years by human counting. He had served the Empire his entire life. He had overseen the surrender of 42 different species. Humans would be number 43. The bridge around him was enormous, filled with dozens of Velon officers working at their stations. Screens showed the positions of all 47 ships in his fleet. They surrounded Earth's solar system like a net. Nothing could escape. Nothing could challenge them. Kralthos was bored. This was always the easiest part. The waiting. The younger species always needed time to accept reality. They would argue among themselves. Some would want to fight. Most would want to surrender. Eventually, the logical ones would win. They always did. "Admiral," one of his officers called out, "we are detecting movement. A single human vessel is breaking formation." Kralthos barely looked up. "One ship? What class?" Their scans indicated is a warship. Approximately 300 meters long, crew of 200. Designation Indomitable. The Admiral laughed. His mandibles clicked together in amusement. One ship challenges our entire fleet? The humans are more foolish than I thought. Send 3 destroyers to intercept. Destroy it quickly. Let the other humans see what happens to those who resist. 3 Velen destroyers peeled away from the formation. Each one was twice the size of the Indomitable. Their plasma cannons began charging, weapons that could burn through any known shield in seconds. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Minho watched the enemy ships approach. His crew was at their stations, everyone focused and ready. The next few minutes would determine if his plan was brilliant or suicidal. Range? Minho asked calmly. Deho checked his navigation console. 200,000 kilometers and closing. They will be in firing range in 90 seconds. Lieutenant Sarah's hands moved across her weapons console. All systems ready, Captain. Railguns loaded. Missiles armed. Point defense active. Horizon drive is spooling up to 30% power. Minho could feel the ship vibrating beneath his feet. The Horizon drive was unlike any other engine humanity had built. Dr. Suji had explained it used exotic matter and quantum fields to bend space itself. Minho did not understand the science. He only needed to know it worked. Engineering status report. Minho called down to the engine room. Tajan's voice came through the speakers. Drive is stable at 30%, Captain. I am seeing some quantum fluctuations we did not account for in testing, but nothing critical yet. If we push past 60%, I cannot guarantee the containment fields will hold. Noted, Minho replied. Prepare to push to 50% on my mark. Jiwan stood beside his chair studying the tactical display. Captain, they are trying to surround us. If all 3 ships fire at once, our shields will not last. They will not get the chance, Minho said. Mirai, execute pattern Delta 7. Pilot Kang Mirai's fingers flew across her controls. She had trained for years to fly combat ships, but nothing in her training prepared her for what the Horizon drive could do. Aye, Captain. Engaging evasive pattern. This is going to feel strange. She pressed the activation sequence. The Horizon drive surged from 30% to 50% power. Reality rippled around the Indomitable. On the Velon destroyers, every alarm suddenly screamed at once. Their sensors showed the human ship in 5 different locations simultaneously. Their targeting computers could not lock on. Their plasma cannons fired, but the bolts passed through empty space where the ship had been a microsecond before. What is happening? The Velon commander demanded. Why can we not hit them? Before anyone could answer, the Indomitable materialized directly above the 3 destroyers. It was so close that the Velon crews could see the human ship through their viewports. Fire everything, Minho ordered. Sarah did not hesitate. Her hands slammed down on the firing controls. Every weapon on the Indomitable discharged at once. Railguns fired solid metal rods accelerated to incredible speeds. They punched through the Velon shields like paper. The shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not physical projectiles moving at a fraction of light speed. The first Velen destroyer took 3 railgun rounds through its central hull. Metal screamed as the ship split in half. Its reactor lost containment and exploded in a ball of white fire. The second destroyer tried to turn, but missiles from the Indomitable were already in flight. 6 warheads struck its engine section. Secondary explosions rippled through the ship. It lost power and began drifting, atmosphere venting from dozens of breaches. The third destroyer managed to fire back. Plasma bolts struck the Indomitable's shields. Warnings blared across the bridge. Shields at 60%, Hyun reported. That plasma is eating through our defenses faster than expected. Mirai, get us out of their firing arc, Minho commanded. Sarah finished them. The Indomitable flickered again, the Horizon drive letting it move in ways that defied physics. One moment it was taking fire, the next it appeared behind the third destroyer. Sarah launched a single torpedo. It streaked across the short distance and punched into the destroyer's command deck. The explosion was small but precise. The Velen ship went dark and silent. 30 seconds. 3 destroyers eliminated. The bridge crew sat in stunned silence. They had done it. They had actually done it. Damage report, Jiwan ordered, breaking the spell. Shields recharging, Hyun said. Hull integrity at 98%. No casualties. Tajan's voice came from engineering. The Horizon drive performed better than expected. We can maintain 50% power indefinitely. If you need more, I can give you short bursts up to 70%. Minho allowed himself a small smile. Well done, everyone. But this was just the beginning. Deho, where is the main Velen fleet? They are holding position, Captain. I think we surprised them. On the Velon flagship, surprise was putting it mildly. Admiral Kraltho stood frozen, staring at his screens. 3 of his destroyers were gone. Destroyed in half a minute by a single human ship using a weapon system he had never encountered. What was that? He demanded. How did they move like that? His science officer worked frantically at her console. Admiral, the human ship appears to be using some form of dimensional technology. They are not moving through normal space. They are shifting between quantum states. Our sensors cannot track them accurately. Then use different sensors. Adapt our targeting systems. That will take hours, Admiral. Maybe days. Kraltos felt something he had not experienced in decades. Doubt. He had commanded fleets across the galaxy. He had crushed rebellions and conquered worlds. He had never lost a ship to an inferior species. Tactical analysis, he ordered. Can that one ship threaten our entire fleet? The tactical officer hesitated. Unknown, Admiral. If they can maintain that level of mobility and firepower, they could strike our ships individually. We would have difficulty coordinating a defense. Then we attack them with overwhelming force, Kraltos decided. Send 20 ships. I want that human vessel destroyed immediately. Use spread fire patterns. If we cannot track them precisely, we will fill space with so much plasma they have nowhere to go. 20 Velen warships broke formation and began accelerating toward the Indomitable's position. It was a massive response, enough firepower to level a small moon. Minho watched them come. They are angry now. Good. Angry opponents make mistakes. Captain, 20 ships is a lot more than 3, Jiwan pointed out. Even with the Horizon Drive, we cannot fight that many at once. We do not need to fight them all, Minho said. We just need to make them afraid. Mirai, take us into the asteroid field near Mars. Let us see how well they maneuver in tight spaces. The Indomitable turned and accelerated. The Velon ships followed, spreading out to surround their prey. But as they entered the asteroid field, something changed. The human ship did not run. Instead, it vanished completely from their sensors. The Velon commanders searched frantically, scanning every rock and every shadow. The Indomitable appeared behind one of the Velon cruisers, fired a devastating broadside and vanished again before return fire could reach it. It appeared to the left of another ship, launched missiles and disappeared. It flickered in and out of existence, striking like a ghost. The Velon ships fired blindly, hitting asteroids and occasionally each other. Their formations broke apart as panic spread. In 15 minutes, 3 more Velon ships were destroyed or disabled. The rest retreated, unwilling to chase a predator they could not see or catch. Aboard the Indomitable, the crew was exhausted but exhilarated. They had fought the Velon Empire and survived. More than survived. They had won. But Minho knew this was only the beginning. The Empire would not give up. They would adapt. They would come again with new strategies. Set course for their flagship, Minho ordered. If we are going to win this war, we need to cut off the head. Jiwon stared at him. The flagship? Minho, that ship is massive. It probably has more firepower than our entire fleet combined. Minho nodded. Exactly. Which is why they will never expect us to attack it directly. Suji, I need the Horizon Drive to do something it was not designed for. What do you need, Captain? The scientist asked. I need it to take us through the 4th dimension. I need us to appear inside their defensive perimeter, close enough to strike the flagship before they can react. Suji's face went pale. Dr. Suji worked at her console for 20 minutes straight without stopping. Her fingers moved rapidly across holographic displays, calculating equations that would make most scientists dizzy. Sweat beaded on her forehead. She was trying to do something that had never been done before. The 4th dimension, she muttered to herself. We need to slide through a space that exists perpendicular to normal reality. If I adjust the quantum field harmonics and increase the exotic matter flow by 17%, Minho stood behind her, watching but not interrupting. He knew Suji was the only person who could make this work. Around them, the bridge crew prepared for what might be their final battle. Jiwon checked weapon systems with Sarah. Hyun coordinated with other human ships in the area, warning them to stay clear of the combat zone. Daeho plotted backup escape routes in case everything went wrong. Mirai ran flight simulations, trying to prepare for maneuvers that defied normal physics. Finally, Suji looked up. Her eyes were tired but determined. I have the calculations, Captain. The Horizon Drive can take us through the 4th dimension. but I need to be honest about the risks. Tell me, Minho said. When we make the jump, we will exist outside of normal space-time for approximately 3 seconds, Suji explained. During those 3 seconds, the crew will experience things that human minds are not designed to understand. Some people might feel sick. Others might hallucinate. A few might pass out. What about the ship itself? The hull will experience stress beyond anything it was designed for. We might lose some systems. We might spring leaks. In the worst case, the ship could break apart. Minho considered this. What are our chances of success? Suji hesitated. Honestly? Maybe 60%. But if we succeed, we will appear exactly where you want us, right next to the Velen flagship inside their defensive perimeter. Jiwon joined them. And if the jump fails? Then we will be torn into atoms and scattered across multiple dimensions, Suji said bluntly. There will be no wreckage. We will simply cease to exist. The bridge was silent for a moment. Everyone had heard. Everyone understood what they were about to attempt. Minho activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. In a few minutes, we are going to attempt something dangerous. We are going to use the Horizon Drive in a way it was never tested. Some of you might feel strange. Some of you might feel scared. That is normal. But remember why we are doing this. The Velon Empire came to our home and demanded we surrender our freedom. We said no. Today we show them why threatening Earth was their biggest mistake. He paused, then continued. When we make this jump, we are going to appear right next to their flagship. We will have one chance to strike before they can react, one chance to show them that humans do not kneel to anyone. Trust your training. Trust each other, and trust that we are doing the right thing. Minho closed the communication channel and sat in his command chair. Suji, bring the Horizon Drive to full power. Mirai, prepare for 4-dimensional translation. Sarah, I want all weapons ready to fire the moment we arrive. Everyone else, hold on to something. The Horizon Drive began to hum. It was a sound that resonated through the entire ship, vibrating in people's bones. The lights flickered. Reality itself seemed to bend around the Indomitable. Admiral Kralthos paced on his command deck. He had sent 20 ships to destroy one human vessel. 7 of those ships were now destroyed or disabled. The remaining 13 had retreated, their commanders reporting impossible tactics and weapons they could not counter. Where is the human ship now? Kralthos demanded. Unknown, Admiral, his sensor officer replied. They disappeared from our scans 14 minutes ago. We cannot locate them. Kralthos felt anger building inside him. This should have been simple. Humans were a primitive species. They had only been traveling between stars for a few decades. They should have been easy to defeat. Strengthen our defensive perimeter, he ordered. Position our fastest ships on the outer ring. If that human vessel appears again, I want it destroyed before it can escape. Yes, Admiral, his tactical officer responded. Our flagship shields are at maximum. All weapon systems are charged. If they attack us directly, they will not survive. Kralthos nodded. That was the logical conclusion. The humans had been lucky so far, using hit-and-run tactics against isolated ships. But his flagship was the most powerful vessel in the Empire. It had destroyed entire fleets. One small human warship could not possibly threaten it. He was wrong. Aboard the Indomitable, the Horizon Drive reached 100% power. The ship began to vibrate so hard that loose objects fell from shelves. The lights went from flickering to strobing. Every crew member felt their stomach lurch. Jump in 5 seconds, Suji announced. 4, 3, 2, 1. Jumping now. Reality shattered. For 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours, the crew of the Indomitable experienced something beyond human understanding. They saw colors that did not exist. They heard sounds from places that were not places. They felt time moving in multiple directions at once. Medic Bae Gina saw herself as a child, as an old woman, as someone who had never been born. She gasped and grabbed her medical station to keep from falling. Daeho watched his navigation console show coordinates that made no mathematical sense. He saw the ship occupying 17 different locations simultaneously. He closed his eyes and counted to 10, trying to hold on to his sanity. Hyun heard radio transmissions from the past and future. He heard his own voice saying things he had never said. He pressed his hands over his ears, but it did not help. Taijin, down in engineering, watched the Horizon Drive do things that should have been impossible. The exotic matter containment fields formed shapes from geometry that existed only in theory. He laughed, not from joy but from the sheer impossibility of what he was witnessing. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The Indomitable snapped back into normal space-time. The crew gasped as reality returned to normal. Some people vomited, others cried. A few just sat stunned, trying to process what they had experienced. But they were exactly where they needed to be. The Indomitable had appeared inside the Velan defensive perimeter. They were less than 5 kilometers from the massive flagship. At this range, it was impossible to miss. "All weapons," Minho shouted, his voice cutting through the confusion. "Fire now!" Sarah's training took over despite her disorientation. Her hands found the firing controls by instinct. Every weapon system on the Indomitable fired at once. Railguns launched their deadly projectiles. Each solid metal rod was accelerated to 20% of light speed. At this velocity, they carried more energy than nuclear bombs. Missiles streaked across the short distance, their warheads designed to penetrate heavy armor before detonating inside their targets. Particle beams, using technology humanity had only recently perfected, burned through space in tight, focused streams, and the experimental gravitic cannon, a weapon so new that only the Indomitable carried it, fired a pulse that distorted gravity itself. The Velan flagship's shields were rated to withstand attacks from entire fleets. They were designed to stop enemies approaching from long range, giving the ship's weapons time to destroy threats before they got close. But the shields had never been designed to stop attacks from inside the defensive perimeter. They had never faced an enemy that could simply appear next to them. The railgun rounds hit first. They punched through the outer shield layer before the Velan crew even realized they were under attack. Metal screamed as the projectiles tore through armor plating. Internal decks vaporized. Structural supports buckled. The missiles arrived a microsecond later. They penetrated deep into the ship before exploding. Fires erupted across multiple decks. Secondary explosions rippled through weapon systems and power conduits. The particle beams burned through shield generators, causing cascading failures. Entire sections of the flagship lost power. The gravitic cannon's pulse hit the ship's central reactor core. Gravity went insane. Metal twisted. Containment fields collapsed. The reactor began an emergency shutdown, but damage was already done. Admiral Kralthos was thrown from his command throne. Alarms screamed from every console. His officers shouted reports, but there was too much damage to process. Shield failure across all sections. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 23. Reactor containment failing. Life support offline in 40% of the ship. Kralthos pulled himself up, blood dripping from a cut on his head. Through his view screen, he could see the human ship. It was so small compared to his flagship, yet it had inflicted catastrophic damage in seconds. "Return fire," he ordered. "Destroy them!" But his weapons were offline. His shield generators were burning. His ship, the pride of the Velan Empire, was dying. Minho watched the enemy flagship struggle. He felt no joy, only grim satisfaction. "Helm, get us clear." "They will try to self-destruct if they think they are going to lose their ship." Mirai engaged the Horizon drive at 60% power. The Indomitable flickered and vanished, reappearing several thousand kilometers away. They watched as the Velan flagship burned. Secondary explosions continued to tear through the massive vessel. Escape pods began launching, carrying survivors away from the doomed ship. Jiwan stood beside Minho's chair. "We did it. We actually destroyed their flagship." "Not destroyed," Minho corrected. "Disabled." The Indomitable limped toward Earth's orbital station. Smoke drifted from damaged sections of the hull. Scorch marks covered the armor plating. Several antennas were bent or broken. The ship looked like it had fought a war, which was exactly what it had done. Inside, the crew worked to keep systems running. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. Emergency lights flickered in corridors where main power had failed. The smell of burnt circuits and overheated metal filled the air. Minho walked through the ship, checking on his people. In the medical bay, Gina treated the wounded. 12 crew members had serious injuries. 30 more had minor burns, cuts, or broken bones. Everyone was exhausted, running on adrenaline and determination. "How are they?" Minho asked Gina quietly. The medic looked up from bandaging a young engineer's arm. "They will live, Captain. No one died. That is a miracle considering what we just went through." Minho nodded. 12 hours ago, they had faced impossible odds. By every logical calculation, they should have been destroyed in the first minutes of combat. But they had survived. More than survived. They had won. He made his way to engineering. Tejan sat on the floor leaning against the Horizon Drive's housing. The engineer's face was covered in soot and sweat. Around him, his team worked to cool down the overheated systems. Status? Minho asked. Tejan laughed weakly. The drive is fried, Captain. We pushed it way beyond safe limits. The exotic matter generators are burnt out. The quantum field emitters are cracked. It will take weeks to repair, maybe months. But it got us through the battle. That is all that matters. You did good work, Tejan. You and your entire team. Get some rest when we dock. Rest sounds amazing right now, the engineer admitted. Minho returned to the bridge. The crew looked as tired as he felt. Jiwan had a bandage on her forehead from where debris had struck her during one of the violent maneuvers. Sarah's hands trembled slightly from firing weapons for hours straight. Hyun's voice was hoarse from shouting reports during the battle. Daiho stared at his navigation console with unfocused eyes. Mirai slumped in her pilot seat, barely awake. We are approaching the station, Mirai reported quietly. Docking in 5 minutes. As the Indomitable drew closer to Earth, Minho saw something unexpected. Hundreds of ships surrounded the orbital station. Military vessels, civilian transports, even private yachts. They formed 2 lines, creating a corridor for the Indomitable to pass through. What are they doing? Jiwan asked. Hyun checked his communications panel. Captain, every ship in Earth orbit is sending us messages. Thousands of them. They are thanking us. The bridge's main screen lit up with video feeds. Humans from across Earth and the orbital colonies were cheering. Some were crying. Others held up signs with messages of gratitude. Children waved Earth flags. Soldiers saluted. Minho felt emotion tighten his throat. They had not fought for glory or recognition. They had fought because it was the right thing to do, but seeing humanity's response made him realize what their victory truly meant. They had given people hope. As the Indomitable passed between the lines of ships, every vessel flashed their running lights in sequence. It was a salute, a military tradition reserved for the greatest heroes. The effect was beautiful, like rivers of light flowing past them. They know what we did, Sarah whispered. The whole planet knows. The Indomitable docked at the station. When the airlock opened, Admiral Jihye was waiting with a full honor guard. But when she saw the condition of Minho's crew, she dismissed the formalities. Get these people to medical facilities and rest quarters, she ordered. They have earned it 10 times over. The crew filed off the ship, most of them barely able to walk. Medical teams moved in to help the wounded. Station personnel applauded as the crew passed, some reaching out to shake their hands or pat their shoulders. Minho was the last to leave. He looked back at the Indomitable one more time. The ship was scarred and broken, but it had brought his crew home safely. He made a silent promise to the vessel that he would see it repaired and flying again. Admiral Jihye led Minho to a private briefing room. Hot coffee and food waited on the table. Minho realized he had not eaten in over 12 hours. He sat down heavily and took a long drink of coffee. Tell me everything, Jihye said. I need to understand what happened out there. Minho spent the next hour explaining the Horizon Drive technology and the tactics they had used. He described how dimensional shifting made them impossible to track. He explained how they had targeted command ships and carriers to break the enemy's coordination. He detailed every decision, every risk, every moment when everything could have gone wrong. Jihye listened carefully, taking notes on her tablet. We need to build more ships with this technology. Hundreds of them. If the Velen Empire returns with a larger fleet, we need to be ready. They will return, Minho said grimly. This was just one fleet. The Empire controls 300 star systems. They have resources we cannot match. But we have something they do not, Jihye pointed out. We have the element of surprise. They thought we were primitive. They thought we would surrender without a fight. Now they know different. And that knowledge will spread. She was right. Over the next few days, news of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. The Velen Empire had tried to keep the defeat secret, but too many species had monitoring stations watching Earth. Too many had detected the battle. The truth could not be hidden. On 40 different worlds enslaved by the Velen Empire, people heard the story of one human ship defeating an invasion fleet. They heard how Captain Minho and his crew had refused to surrender. They heard how humanity had fought against impossible odds and won. Rebellions began almost immediately. Species that had submitted to the Empire decades ago suddenly found their courage again. If humans could resist, why could they not resist too? The Velan Empire, which had stood unchallenged for 2,000 years, found itself fighting wars on multiple fronts. Resources that should have been used to conquer new worlds were instead diverted to suppress rebellions. Ships that should have been invading Earth were sent to protect Velan colonies. Within 2 months, the Empire was collapsing from within. Minho watched these developments from Earth with mixed feelings. He was glad that other species were finding their freedom, but he knew the cost of rebellion. War meant death and suffering. He had started something that would lead to countless battles across the galaxy. "You are thinking too much," Jiwan said. She had found him on the observation deck staring out at the stars. Her head wound had healed, leaving only a small scar. "I keep wondering if we did the right thing," Minho admitted. "Maybe if we had negotiated, found a peaceful solution." "There was no peaceful solution," Jiwan interrupted firmly. "The Velan do not negotiate. They conquer or they destroy. You know this. You studied their history. Every species that surrendered peacefully was enslaved. Every culture was erased. At least now those species have a chance to be free." Minho nodded slowly. She was right, but the weight of responsibility still felt heavy. 3 months after the battle, Minho received an unexpected visitor. A small alien shuttle requested permission to dock at Earth's orbital station. The shuttle belonged to the Kalari, one of the species the Velan had conquered 50 years ago. The Kalari ambassador was a small, blue-skinned being with large eyes and delicate features. She stood before Minho in a conference room, flanked by Earth diplomats and security personnel. "Captain Minho," she said in accented English, "I come bearing a message from the Kalari Resistance Council. Because of what you did, my people found the courage to fight back against our oppressors. 3 weeks ago we drove the Velan from our homeworld. We are free for the first time in 50 years. She stepped forward and placed a small crystal in Minho's hand. "This is a memory stone from our culture. It contains the names of every Kalari who died fighting for our freedom. We wanted you to have it. We wanted you to know that your courage inspired ours. You showed the galaxy that the strong do not always win. Sometimes those who refuse to surrender can change everything." Minho looked at the crystal, feeling its weight. Inside, he knew, were thousands of names. Thousands of lives lost in the fight for freedom. Lives that might have been spared if the Velan Empire had never been challenged. But they also represented something else. They represented people who chose to fight rather than accept slavery. They represented cultures that would survive instead of being erased. They represented hope. "Thank you," Minho said quietly. "Your people's freedom was earned by their own courage, not mine. But I am honored to carry their memory." Over the following year, more delegations arrived at Earth. Species from across the galaxy came to thank humanity and to form alliances. Earth, which had been alone in the galaxy just months before, suddenly found itself at the center of a new coalition of free worlds. The Velan Empire never recovered. Internal rebellions and external pressure from the growing coalition of free worlds broke its power. Within 5 years, the empire that had ruled for 2 millennia was reduced to a handful of systems, no longer a threat to anyone. Captain Minho received the Solar Cross, humanity's highest military decoration. His crew received medals and honors. The Indomitable was repaired and upgraded, becoming the flagship of Earth's new defensive fleet. The 3 Velan carriers were massive ships, each one carrying hundreds of fighter craft. They moved in formation, trying to put distance between themselves and the Indomitable. Their commanders had watched the flagship burn. They had seen what the human ship could do. Fear was spreading through the Velan fleet like a disease. Minho studied the tactical display on his command screen. The carriers were retreating toward the outer edge of the solar system, protected by a screen of cruisers and destroyers. It was a defensive formation, designed to make any attack costly. "They are learning," Jiwan observed. "They are not going to let us pick them off one at a time anymore." "Then we adapt too," Minho said. He turned to Suji. "Can the Horizon Drive handle sustained combat at 70% power?" Suji checked her readings. "For about 30 minutes, yes. After that, we risk permanent damage to the exotic matter generators. We would lose dimensional shifting capability." 30 minutes, Minho repeated. "That gives us enough time. Sarah, I want you to prioritize the carriers. Ignore everything else unless it directly threatens us. Our goal is to take out their fighter support. Understood, Captain, Sarah replied. Her weapons console showed multiple targeting solutions. If we can destroy the carriers, their capital ships lose their defensive screen. They will be vulnerable to our railgun attacks. Mireille cracked her knuckles and grinned. So we are going to dance through their formation, hit the carriers, and get out before they can surround us? Exactly, Minho confirmed. Random jump pattern. Do not let them predict where we will appear next. Keep them guessing. Keep them afraid. The Indomitable accelerated toward the Velon formation. The Horizon drive hummed at 70% power. Reality rippled around the ship as it prepared to shift between dimensions. The Velon cruisers detected the approaching human vessel. Their weapons charged. Plasma cannons, gravity missiles, and energy beams all locked onto the Indomitable's projected path. Then the human ship vanished. It reappeared 3,000 kilometers to the left, already firing. Railgun rounds streaked across space, slamming into one of the carriers. The massive ship's shields flared bright blue as they tried to absorb the kinetic energy. Several rounds penetrated through, punching holes in the carrier's flight deck. Before the Velon could return fire, the Indomitable disappeared again. It flickered back into existence above the formation, launching a spread of missiles at a second carrier. The missiles used smart targeting, adjusting their course to follow the carrier even as it tried to evade. Explosions blossomed across the carrier's hull. Fighter craft still in their launch bays were destroyed before they could deploy. The Velon fleet fired everything they had at where the Indomitable had been. Their weapons hit empty space. Plasma bolts and missiles detonated harmlessly, lighting up the darkness with wasted firepower. The human ship appeared again, this time below the formation. The gravitic cannon fired, sending a pulse of twisted gravity toward the third carrier. The pulse struck the carrier's center mass. Metal groaned as artificial gravity wells formed and collapsed in rapid succession. The carrier's spine cracked. It began breaking apart, torn by forces no ship was designed to withstand. First carrier is venting atmosphere, Hyun reported. Second carrier has lost primary engines. Third carrier is breaking up, Minho nodded. Good. Daeho, where are their battle cruisers? 4 battle cruisers are moving to intercept us, Captain. They are spreading out, trying to box us in. They cannot box in something they cannot catch. Mirai, take us through their formation. Let us see how brave they are when we are in close quarters. The Indomitable dove toward the Velon battlecruisers. These were old ships, veterans of countless conquest. Their crews were experienced warriors who had never known defeat. But experience did not prepare them for an enemy that could be everywhere at once. The human ship appeared next to the first battlecruiser, fired a devastating broadside into its engine section, and vanished before the battlecruiser's point defense could even activate. The battlecruiser lost power and began drifting, fires spreading through its interior. The second battlecruiser tried to anticipate where the Indomitable would appear next. Its commander ordered weapons to fire in a spread pattern, hoping to catch the human ship in a net of plasma. But the Indomitable appeared behind them instead, launching missiles that tracked the battlecruiser's heat signature. The missiles found their target. The battlecruiser's reactor containment failed. The ship exploded in a sphere of white light. The third and fourth battlecruisers tried a desperate tactic. They positioned themselves back to back, covering each other's blind spots. Their shields overlapped, creating a stronger defensive barrier. Minho smiled. They are trying to protect each other. Sarah, can you punch through overlapping shields? Not with railguns, Sarah admitted. But the gravitic cannon does not care about shields. It warps space itself. Then use it. The Indomitable appeared directly between the 2 battlecruisers. Before either ship could fire, the gravitic cannon discharged. The pulse expanded outward in a sphere. Both battlecruisers were caught in the effect. Their overlapping shields collapsed inward, crushed by distorted gravity. The ships slammed into each other, armor crumpling, hulls tearing open. In 15 minutes, the Indomitable had destroyed or disabled 3 carriers and 4 battlecruisers. 7 of the Velon Empire's most powerful warships eliminated by a single human vessel. The remaining Velon ships began to retreat. Their formation broke apart as individual captains made the decision to flee, rather than face the impossible human weapon. Some ships jumped to faster-than-light speed and left the solar system entirely. Others pulled back to defensive positions, unwilling to advance but not yet ready to abandon the invasion. On Earth, Military observers watched in stunned silence. Admiral Nam Jihye stood in the command center, staring at tactical displays that showed the Velon fleet in disarray. "One ship," she whispered. "Captain Minho and one ship are dismantling an empire." Her aide stood beside her. "Admiral, should we send support? The Indomitable must be running low on ammunition and power." Jihi shook her head. "No. If we send other ships, we might interfere with whatever tactic Minho is using. Let him finish this. But I want every piece of sensor data we are collecting, every weapon signature, every movement pattern. Whatever technology that ship is using, we need to understand it and replicate it across our entire fleet." Aboard the Indomitable, the crew was exhausted, but pushing forward. Gina, the medic, moved through the ship treating injuries. Several crew members had broken bones from the violent maneuvers. Others had burns from overheating consoles. A few had severe disorientation from the dimensional shifts, but everyone stayed at their posts. Tejan worked frantically in engineering. The Horizon drive was showing critical stress markers. "Captain, we have been running at 70% for 23 minutes. The exotic matter generators are overheating. We need to power down soon or risk a complete failure." "How much longer can you give me?" Minho asked. 5 minutes, maybe 10 at most. After that, the drive might burn out completely. We would lose dimensional shifting permanently. Minho looked at the tactical display. 8 Velon capital ships remained in the solar system. Most were retreating, but they had not left yet. If he let them escape, they would regroup. They would bring reinforcements. They would adapt their tactics. "How many ships are still within striking range?" he asked Deho. 3 cruisers and 1 damaged carrier, Captain. They are trying to cover the retreat of their other vessels. Minho made his decision. "We take them all. Tsuji, I need the Horizon drive at maximum sustainable power for 10 more minutes. Can you do it?" Tsuji's hands flew across her console, adjusting parameters and rerouting power. "I am diverting all non-essential systems to drive cooling. Life support will drop to minimum levels. It will get cold and the air will get thin, but we will survive. The drive can handle 10 more minutes. Do it," Minho ordered. "All crew secure your stations. We are going to finish this." The temperature on the bridge began to drop as life support reduced to minimum output. Crew members could see their breath in the air. But no one complained. They understood what was at stake. The Indomitable became a ghost ship, flickering in and out of existence across the battlefield. It appeared, struck, and vanished in a deadly pattern. The remaining Velon ships tried to flee, but the human vessel was faster. It hunted them down one by one. A cruiser lost its engines and went dark. Another carrier, already damaged, took a gravitic pulse that finished it. The last 2 cruisers tried to jump to faster than light speed, but the Indomitable appeared in their path and disabled their jump drives with precision railgun fire. 29 minutes after the attack began, the last Velon ship in the solar system was either destroyed, disabled, or in full retreat. Minho sat back in his chair. Exhausted Taijin shut down the Horizon drive. "We are done." The engine's hum died away. Normal power returned to life support. The bridge began to warm up again. The crew sat in silence, barely believing what they had accomplished. Yoon broke the quiet. "Captain, I am receiving a transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Jihi wants to speak with you directly." "Put her through," Minho said. The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but proud. "Captain Minho, on behalf of Earth and humanity, thank you.